Ladies and gentlemen, how many of you would want to accomplish something monumental in your lives in the span of 24 hours? I'm not talking about winning a hot dog eating contest or any silly stuff like that. I'm talking about getting something incredible like the Grandmaster title. Something that I would not know anything about. In this video, though, I'm going to tell you the story, which actually just got reported yesterday, of an international master from Germany. His name is Friedrich Swane, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, younger brother of Rasmus Swane, German Grandmaster, who I've lost to several times in Title Tuesday. Frederick is 17 years old, if I'm not mistaken. He's already rated over 2,500, but a couple of days ago, he got his remaining 2 GM norms in 24 hours. That's never happened. As far as recorded history of chess, I don't believe that has ever happened. So he played in 2 separate tournaments, and one finished, and the other one, which was split into games at multiple points in time, both finished in the span of 24 hours, and he had GM norm performances. He's already over 2,500, which makes him what we call a GM elect. So the next time that FIDE has a Congress and they meet, they're gonna go, oh, okay, looks good. They're gonna stamp it, and then Mr. Swane is going to become the second Grandmaster in his family, unless there are more. In this video, I'm gonna take you through 4 of his games. He is obviously very strong. Yeah, I mean, it's yet to see when we will get a 24-hour GM from birth to the GM in 24 hours, but so this is from the Hamburg, they had a 10-player round robin in Hamburg. Frederick plays e4. I've noticed he also likes to play the ready. He generally leans toward more positional and endgame style things on the board. But here we have an exchange variation Caro Kann with c3, bishop f5 by black, and queen b3. Already kind of a peculiar opening sequence, because if white wants to play the exchange variation, then normally white does it like this. And then knight c6, c3, and the knight goes here, so that if the bishop pins it, you have f3. This is kind of the meta nowadays, if you will. But in this one, you can kind of tell the difference. White doesn't get a chance to put his bishop here, but black moves the bishop to f5, which invites queen b3, and now targeting that side of the board. Now, Frederick here plays the best move, which is knight h4, taking advantage of the awkward positioning of the bishop. If black tries to remove the bishop from the view of the knight, then you walk straight into white's pawns, and then when the bishop goes to g6, you take it. You can delay for a move or two, but this is kind of what you want. And you go for a position like this, where you have 2 bishops. Maybe your bishop doesn't go to g2 necessarily, maybe it goes to e2, e3, knight d2, but you just get a bishop pair and you ask your opponent what they're going to do about it. So Prohashka decides to just leave the bishop there, and the bishop will perish. Give it a couple of moves. There it is. And I was very shocked by Frederick Swane's move here. Knight takes g6, h takes g6, just opening up the position for his opponent. But then he plays knight f3, and I think the reason why he did this is he's in a tournament situation here toward the end where he has to win every game. So he's in a must-win situation in this tournament where the last 3 rounds, he has to win all his games. This is round 7, 8, and 9. So he has to win every game to clinch a GM norm. And, well, what better way to do that than by getting a position that looks like this? This is objectively about an equal position, but it's extremely complicated, and Prohashka just goes for the kill. I mean, he just goes g5, and if you're really going to tell me and try to debate with me who has a better position here, I'm going to say black. I mean, I'm going to say black. I do not feel like we see the presence of the bishop pair. This bishop hasn't even had a chance to leave its house. Like, are we really going to judge it? It's like, am I really going to judge you for what you were in your own house? No. I mean, maybe you were nothing in your own house. I don't know. But I can't judge. Now, the second you step out onto the street, that's when you get into the public eye. All right, now we're like, what the heck? It's like me and my hair. Every time I leave the house, someone's like, what is on his head? Is that a dish sponge? I'm playing into the meme at this point. So, yeah, g5 is, it's a good move for black. And, I mean, Prohashka's making good progress toward the white position. Here, though, queen c7 is logical move, which sets up various tactical opportunities here. And knight takes d4, for example, rook e6 just loses the game to this move. Now the queen is pinned. It's also a fork. So, yeah, that doesn't happen. But, I mean, Prohashka has like a rock-solid formation here. Really just the question is, I mean, is he going to play g4? And he does. He has now sacrificed 2 pawns. So we back it up a second. The bishop is defending the queen for white. So 1 pawn, 2 pawns. Prohashka's just given up 2 pawns like this. Boop. He didn't have to do this. He could have played g4 right away. And then after h takes g4, he could have gone like this. Takes, rook takes, try to double up, try to play the g pawn and maybe triple up in the long term. Queen g7, queen h6, of course, because you don't want to lose your queen. But he went this way. So queen h7, king f1, and I mean, he's just hunting the white position. Look at it. He's got 4 pieces all on the h file. I think the best move was not knight h4. Yeah, I think it was to play queen h1 first, king e2, knight f takes d4. You might ask yourself, wait a minute, I don't understand. Isn't that defended? Yes, it is. The computer wants to sacrifice all this material and then just go rook e8. Just go rook e8. And for example, if white tries to defend himself with rook e3, you can't take with the bishop because you lose this. And if you take like this, it's even worse. And if you take with the king, I mean, I don't know, rook e8, you probably get mated in a few moves. So you can't do any of that. But Prohashka doesn't take the right step forward. Okay, he plays knight h4, and Svane now takes his 2 pawns, and he runs. And he plays a really nice defensive maneuver here. He brings the rook back to e3, and here, I mean, this is just savage. Look at this defensive idea. Rook back to e3, and leaves the black bishop there, and plays rook h3. You see, what Prohashka wants is to sack the knight. He wants to sack the knight, shred open the h-file, and here the evaluation has an M in it, okay? And it's not a BMW model. M11 is not a good thing. It's made in 11. Black is winning by force here. All right, because if you take the knight, your king gets hunted out into the open. So bishop g1, rook h3, Klodge defensive move, a cold shower it must have been for Prohashka. And the black bishop is trapped on g1. Black cannot make any more progress at all. Queen d7, you get this, and you give him back 1 pawn, but now you can begin consolidating. That rook on h3 is such a problem, but Prohashka's not done. All right? GMs don't just go away. They say that you have to beat GMs multiple times in the same game. Well, Svane is up to the task. f4. Nice move, removing the guard of g5. Sorry, of the h4 knight, the pawn on g5. He gets the pawn, and now another very nice idea. Not using this rook as a defensive asset. You don't want to trade and just give the rook back, but a very nice move, rook h6. This is yet another cold shower for the black position, because after this trade, if you try to win this back, the time you spend winning this back, I go rook e1, and then if you take on h6, you have all sorts of back rank problems with bishop takes f5, rook is going to e8, so a6, and he consolidates. He's up multiple pawns. Queen gets to f6, bishop gets to d6, and now Svane goes from being the defender of the position to the bully. He is going to take this, he's going to take this, he's going to play h7, he's going to get rid of the rook and then promote. And he wins a very nice game where he had to change gears from defense to offense versus a very strong player. Peter Prohashka's like former 26-30, I think. So in the 8th round of the Hamburg tournament, he plays e4 again, and this time he's up against Greek grandmaster, Vasilios Katronias. Here we have a Rossalimo, so showing what his repertoire is in the Sicilian. Takes, castles. There are many plans here for white. You can play for a d3, h3 kind of a thing. You can play for c3, d4. Rook e1 is sometimes possible. So we do see kind of like a combination approach of c3, h3, rook e1, and probably we will see d4. Black might try to play f5, aka he plays it right now. White plays e5 and d4. One of the most imbalanced openings in all of chess. Objectively, position is equal, but it's full of life. It's extremely complicated. Black plays c5 to try to assault the center. Now, normally, if white plays d5 here, white can get this incredible looking bind. But this bind is actually terrible. Like, it's not as good as you would think. Knight e5, and it doesn't matter that there's a bind because the bishops are just so good. The bishops just play directly around the pawn structure. Now, is the position worse? No, it's equal. So he takes on c5. And then he plays knight to a3. I think there, as far as I know, there's another move here. There's like some ways that white can play knight d2, knight b3. Sometimes white can play b4 to try to defend this pawn in the long run. He chooses knight a3, bishop e3. and knight c4, and he's just going right here. So Cutronius has given him the d6 square, but to offset that, he is now going to activate his light squared bishop and play g5. So for a second game in a row, the people playing with the black pieces have come to fight, and Rasmus Svane has to basically call the bluff on the position, right? He has to say, you know what, you don't really have much of an attack. In this position, there's an opportunity to damage white's structure and then maybe play a move like f4. The problem is this is a very short-lived initiative. If you try to bring the knight to f5, it looks great, but let's not forget, you gave me the d6 knight. That is a 7-point knight. It's not a 3-point knight. It's a 7-point knight on d6. Your knight on f5 is a 4-point knight. My knight on d6 is a 7-point knight. But Cutronius doesn't do that. And as you can see here, he's throwing caution to the wind. He's playing g4. And it's up to Rasmus Svane now to kind of figure out the intricacies of this position, convert his material advantage, and go well on his way to getting into a Gotham Chess YouTube video. So what does he do? He actually gives away his 7-point knight. Why? Well, here's the thing. Had he waited, right, had he taken this pawn, black suddenly activates his position. If you try to back up, this knight will take on e5, right? I mean, that's just really what's going to happen, is that when the knight takes on e5, the floodgates open. This is here, this is here, this is coming to f3 and winning the queen. The game is just over. I mean, it's like very close to being over already. So for that reason, he gets rid of the knight, and now what? Shoves his own knight forward and closes the cage, h4. And that is the way you beat a pawn storm. If you can blockade a pawn storm without causing any sort of damage to your own position, you're going to be in good shape. And now, you know, he wipes the blood off his cheek like Thanos and goes, all that for a drop of blood. This is blockaded. You have absolutely no way forward. And remember when you gave me all this? Well, now you're going to have to pay the price. b5, a couple moves later, c6, and it turns out that as your entire army went this way to guard against my infiltration, look who you left. Completely on his own. Surrounded by 15 points of material. Like, where are your guards, man? And it's about to end in pretty violent fashion. Because the move c6 is brutal. If black takes on c6, I go here. If you take, I check you, and wherever you go, I'm going to take all your pawns. And by the time you go all the way back, I'm going to check you, win your bishop, win your pawn, and then I'm just going to crush him. It's going to take your soul. So he plays bishop h6, but now f3, and the attack will continue. I will now remove physically, one by one, every bit of your defense. All right, you're hanging off a cliff, and I'm removing your fingers one by one. dc, fg, GH, and here Cutronius realizes that if he goes back to G7, this is coming, so he might as well take on H5. It's kind of insane, but there's no checks. There's no checks, at least for now. There's no checks, but I'm gonna go get rid of your bishop. That's actually what I'm gonna sack, play this, H5, etc. And yeah, I mean, Cutronius does his best. Bishop E3, bishop takes G2, but now we have a rook trade. I mean, the crazy thing about this position, if we just back up for a moment, I think after c5, white had to play rook takes c5, with the intention being that if you go for kind of the exact same position, there is obviously a rook hanging at the end. And if something like rook fc8, there is g4. So you had to trade rooks and remove the f7 guard so that the queen could get down there. But I guess in probably what was a low-time situation, Frederick kind of underestimated the power of this move, and now there is no g4. And believe it or not, as dangerous as this position looks, it's better for black. Apparently, if black played bishop d5, this king survives the apocalypse on the side of the board. Could have been like the game of the year. It doesn't even matter. Like you can play, for example, oh no, you can't play knight h7. Knight h7 threatening knight f6, but there is this move, which doesn't work. Oh, but then actually there is bishop takes h6 and queen g5. So I don't even know. I mean, it's not winning. It's not winning for white. But Cutronius plays rook c4, and Svane plays rook d4, gets a trade, and now finds this knight h7 idea to play knight f6 mate, and there's no stopping it. So Cutronius misses this idea, I suppose in time trouble. I guess they were low on time, but an insane game. Here, black's best move was to play queen d5 to try to hit the bishop. And after rook d4, black's best move was to play rook c3, pinning the bishop to the queen. And apparently, like I said, after queen g3, bishop d5, black is better. I mean, it's insane. But knight h7 and a couple more moves, the king gets hunted. And Cotronius resigns because after takes, you have this, queen g5, queen h5, and the king is forced to the back rank. And you're going to win the queen. So, a completely insane game. He gets a second win in a row. And now, in the final game of the Hamburg round robin, Frederick Svane has to win with the black pieces. So he plays a very kind of... Well, his opponent, first of all, plays some kind of obscure line. Ruben Gideon Kölner. I don't know how I'm trying to pronounce that in a German way. And I mean, white is doing some goofy stuff here. This looks like something you play in like a hyperbullet game, but this is what black needs. You know, you need to get goofy if you're going to play for a win. And I mean, black has a very decent position here. Actually, this resembles Prohashka's game, right? The first game where Prohashka castled queenside, white went this way, and then there was a big attack. So now Frederick has this position, but with the black pieces. And you'll notice that, I mean, Ruben is showing up to play. I mean, knight, queen, two bishops, maybe long castle, b4, b5 is coming, right? So he does end up castling long, and it's just a super, super imbalanced game. I mean, there's a massive, massive tension felt here. But the game is, I mean, something has to happen, right? That's just the truth. Right now, white has the option to play rook takes d5. Rook takes d5, rook takes d5, rook takes d5, bishop takes d5, queen d5, and something like this, and completely kill the game. Everything gets traded, and maybe you do play like that. I mean, you know, maybe you do play like that, but maybe you also have to win. That's always the most fun, when both players have to win. So here, black could not play b5 for the longest time because of queen a6. But the second the queen leaves, now he's like, okay, b5, I'm not really too worried about weakening my position, because where are you going to move the knight? If you play knight a3, you bet I'm going to take it, and you bet I'm going to take this too, and you have the dumbest pawn structure in the world. No disrespect whatsoever, but those pawns are absolute garbage, all right? So, in the words of Stephen A. Smith, a bona fide scrub, right? Bona fide scrub pawn structure. So we do actually get a big exchange here, but a pawn is just going down the drain. I don't exactly know what was going on here for white. I guess he thought he was going to get sufficient counterplay. Queen went back to e6, and then g5. But this is not Rasmus. This is Frederick Svane's like bread and butter. I watched so many of his games from these two tournaments, and he just suffocates people to death. He's very good at consolidating his advantage, being like up material. You'll notice that white is overextended here. Like, he can't make any more pawn moves forward. The rest of the game is going to be decided by black's pawn moves. This is not a free pawn, because queen d5 check, and something will be lost, and you do not want that to happen. So bishop d6, and let's see him go to work. a5, nice move, chipping away. Queen a2, and now we have a little tactical skirmish. Pawn has been picked up, and he's still up a pawn. Check. Oh my, I mean, he just sacked the queen. If king takes c2, knight b, queen c2. Oh my goodness. And now he's up material, but it's worse than that. The fact that white is, again, overextended. This knight could get to f5. It's very difficult to defend this. Maybe, but again, like, look, I mean, white just can't move any pawn. How do you expect to defend this position? You're barely moving here. Now black starts to rip it all apart, right? Knight takes e3, fe3, and that was the final mistake. White thought that he had a defensive fortress here. He thought it was impossible for black to break through. Then he sacked his outside pass pawn because he didn't want to deal with f5. But this is just not it. I mean, this is just not going to work. The bishop goes around to e1, g3, and Frederick Svane picks up all the remaining pawns, and white resigns because king h5, king g4, and the knight just perishes. It's completely stuck on the side of the board because of the bishop. So, very, very nice game. And so he wins this game to go 3 out of 3 in the last 3 rounds. Performance rating of 2600, gets his GM norm. And then he goes to play the Bundesliga. The Bundesliga is a fantastic football league, but it's also a chess league in Germany. And In the Bundesliga, he had played 8 games thus far, which he had a very good performance in, and he needed just a draw in the last round, and he got it. He got his draw in the last round, but I wanted to show you his best game from the Bundesliga. This was against Alexander Markgraf. Name sounds like it could be vaguely Russian or from the maybe a former Soviet Union, but there's some players like that in Germany who sometimes have names like that. And Frederick Svane, this in my opinion was his best game. So he plays c3 Sicilian. It started with knight f3, but it became a c3 Sicilian. And I don't exactly know where the players left theory here. I don't really care where the players left theory here. Bishop d2 is to play knight c3. This has all been played many, many times. And we have the following position. Actually, we have the following position. So if you look at the position, white has a little bit of a damage structure, right? AC are kind of split. It's 4-4, but it's AB versus AC. However, what does white have in return? Well, the black bishop is very passive. White has the open B file, and black doesn't have a kingside knight. And that's actually significant. That is the price that black pays to get this better structure and maybe long-term prospects to play on the queen side. Like if you give black a couple more moves, black is going to go knight a5, then black is going to go bishop c6, and this is the way that black activates the position, right? Frederick Svane plays h4, which is just a gangster move. I mean, this is what you do nowadays. You play h4, and you have multiple ideas here with the move h4. Maybe you want to get something to g5. Maybe you want to play h5 and h6. So black plays bishop e8. Now, again, if black continues like nothing is going wrong, then h5 is a possibility. And if, again, black proceeds like nothing is wrong, knight g5, threatening h7. If you take, well, then I'm going to take. Now I have the bishop pair, and it's only going to get worse. I'm going to go h6. Then I'm going to, try to bring my queen and mate you. Like, it's just an unpleasant position to deal with. It doesn't matter if I have a weakness. Checkmate is more important than one pawn. So bishop e8, bishop d3, and now rook e1. I think rook e1 is quite a professional move here, just to overprotect the center. That's very important. That pawn cuts the black position in half, basically. It doesn't allow the knight, the bishop, or the queen to get that way, or the rook. And it also doesn't really allow black to play f6 and activate this bishop, because pawn takes. So queen a4, now h5, and now we kind of see this h6. We see this alpha 0 approach to the position. I know that that's an overstated thing, but it's true. And black has a very unpleasant decision here. What do? You really should not take, because you do not want the king to be open like this. You really are hesitating if you want to play g6, because then you have dark squared weaknesses. This is a permanent endgame weakness, and the king is weak in kind of all checkmating attacks. Do you ignore? I mean, do we really ignore this? You can attack this, but then bishop b5. Like, is this really something that you want to allow? Markgraf plays g6, and now we see the slow infiltration of the white pieces. Black plays bishop back to f8, seemingly thinking that, hey, as long as I'm defending over there, I should be okay. And now white begins a very impressive journey. If you cannot land a queen or a bishop there to do any damage, who can you land here to do some damage? Survey says the horse. How do you get the horse there? Sometimes you need to take one step back to take 750,000 steps forward. Knight h2. Now you might say, Levy, that's an idiotic move. Doesn't that guard the pawn? Exactly. Which is why it's so impressive that he did it. Knight takes e5. Black is now a pawn up. He might be 2 pawns up. Pawns don't matter when we're talking checkmate. Bishop takes b7. He tries to get the pawn back right away and then take the knight and then continue this journey, but it would have been even better here for him to play bishop c2. The point is that queen a5, you might say, I can take the knight. Now rook c5. And you lose the bishop, and again, you don't have mate. But bishop c2, queen a5, bishop f4 would have been the right idea. He probably didn't like the fact that winning this doesn't necessarily mean you win the game. You still have a weakness here, and the more pieces you trade off, the less chance you're going to actually deliver a fatal blow. So he decides to get his piece back immediately and goes back to g3, queen a5, bishop f4, here comes the knight, and everybody's crowding on this side of the board trying to get in. But black is okay. Black is not in a lot of danger. He has defended the position quite well. Rook e5. Rook c5. What is going on here? There is like A lot of tension here on the 5th rank between all these pieces, like a shootout, you know? Rook or a duel back in the day, you know, like those Western movies, nobody move. You know, everybody's pointing at everybody. So rook takes f5, rook f5, bishop e5. We have been planning this for a while. The black bishops are nothing more than artifacts standing on a shelf that need to be dusted off. As I say that, one of them moves. But this bishop on e8 has moved once and then went here, okay? Like, this bishop traveled to a country and is just staying in the hotel room. I mean, I can't really explain it any better than that. f6 blocks out the position, but now we have some targets. Queen b8. He's swarming down the middle. He's swarming on the king side. He's swarming on the queen side as well. Black is defending, though. His position is very stubborn. So how is Frederick Svane going to break through? Does he have a breakthrough? He finds something beautiful here. You see, black did not want to lose his a-pawn. You might say, you know, a couple of moves ago here, could he have done this? Yes, but then after takes and maybe something like rook a5, this pawn will be lost. Maybe this pawn is a weakness. This rook is very bad. So here, black was like, all right, you know what? I'm not going to lose my a-pawn. I'm going to go here. White to play and win. Again, a tragic blunder in what was most likely time control. You know, low time. It happens. It happens. Beautiful idea here by white. Combining play on all 3 sides of the board. You use the queen as a decoy to attack the king, but in reality, it's the queen that's perishing. It's not bishop b6, because the queen can get out. But first, it's check. And then bishop b6, and the queen is lost. After bishop f7, if you take the queen, you are going to lose yours. So it's white to play and win. It's something we call a desperado. You were going to lose your queen anyway, so you might as well sacrifice it for the bishop, because that way you get the bishop first, then you go here, and after queen f7 in very, very nice fashion, Markgraf resigned. Now, this was not the game that clinched the norm, but it was one of the games, because Frederick Svane won like 5 or 6 games in the Bundesliga. He made a couple of draws. He did lose a game to talented player, Grandmaster Erwin Lemmy. But in the span of 24 hours, he got 2 GM norms. If you're still confused, by the way, what norms even are, you should watch my video called How to Get the Grandmaster title. There are norms, there are rating, but he becomes the second Svane to become a GM, and he did it in the span of 24 hours. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Maybe one day I will... I'm not going to make this about myself. I'm just going to be depressed for the rest of the day. Congratulations to newly minted Grandmaster Frederick Svane. All the best for you and your brother as well. I hope he continues to beat me in Title Tuesday. Actually, I hope he doesn't continue to beat me in Title Tuesday. Yeah, hope you all have a great rest of your Tuesday or whenever you're watching this. It's the last day of May, so happy June. And I will see you all tomorrow for tomorrow's video. Get out of here.